Welcome to this week's Warhammer 40k podcast. I'm here with Big Mech Dan Skull. This is going to be exciting, and it's coming right up.
Necrons!
Yeah, sounds good.
Lovely.
Nick speaking, and welcome to this podcast. Right, I am very excited because this week's guest is Mr. Big Mech Dan Skull. Hello, Mr. Dan Skull. How are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fantastic to be here. It's good to be on. What is this now? Your fourth or fifth episode?
It's going to be the fifth one. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah. So obviously we have actually met in person at the Dominion War tournament a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago.
Didn't get to play, but it was great sort of meeting you, especially as you live quite far away from me as well. So
yeah. It's always good to make a journey when you're meeting someone that you've sort of interacted with for so long.
Yeah, this is it. Now, of course, Dan has his own YouTube channel, and of course, we've got that linked up in the description below. So make sure you head on over and give his channel a sub. And of course, today we are going to do my usual probing questions and find out all about Dan.
I don't know if I can.
Are you ready for this, Dan? Are you ready?
No, not at all.
Okay, the hot seat is on. Here we go. How did you get into this awesome? It's not an orbum. How did you get into this awesome hobby of ours?
Let me think now. It was I first got into the hobby at the age of about 12 when I went to high school. A friend of mine went to a local grammar school, and he got into the hobby, and then sort of took me into a Games Workshop store, and then I sort of showed a bit of an interest. Started. I think the first models I bought were Striking Scorpions.
Okay.
From the old blister packs you used to get. This was in about 97 or something like that. And then I found other people that went to my school that got into the hobby as well, but I'd never really played at that age. We stumbled our way through the rules. I think you had Steve-O on a few weeks back, and he said something similar, like when he was younger he didn't really play by the rules, he just sort of made up the rules as they went along. Similar situation for me then. Sort of left the hobby for a few years. Lord of the Rings came out, and I was working at Tesco when the second or third one came out, I think. And I saw White Dwarf had Lord of the Rings miniatures in it, so that sort of drew my attention back into it. I've sort of drifted away from the hobby a number of times, and then sort of gone back towards it. But finally getting back into the hobby in this latest stint, around about 2010-ish, when I was visiting my friend that I went to high school with that played, and because he moved away down to Derby, I was visiting him. And he said he'd been looking on the Games Workshop website recently, and I was like, you know what, so have I. So then we sort of got back into it together again. So it was around about 2010 that I got into the hobby. So I've been in solidly for about 14 years now, but on and off since about 97.
Right, yeah. I think a lot of people do start when they are literally teenagers, and then they sort of fade away and then sort of come back to it. I'm the polar opposite to that, because I started when I was 30. Didn't know anything about this hobby at all before then. So, yeah, it's slightly different, I think, to most people's experience.
I think so,
yeah. So what armies do you actually own at the moment, and what have you owned over the years?
It's probably easier to tell you what armies I don't own. Because in this latest stint in the hobby since 2010, I was very much a butterfly. Whatever the latest release was, in 40k at least, whatever the latest release was, it was constantly drawing my attention. So when I got back into it, the starter box was Dark Angels and Chaos. I think it was 6th edition, that wasn't it? The Dark Vengeance box.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And so I picked up one of those. I had a bit of Chaos, bit of Dark Angels. I still had all my old Eldar from my youth. But then my friend sort of said he'd always seen me as a bit of an Orc player. So I was looking at the Orc miniatures on the Games Workshop website, and they'd really improved a lot, or they'd become less goofy, shall we say, rather than improved a lot. The styling of them had changed, and it was more to my tastes. So the 90s miniatures and stuff, I always felt they were just a little bit too goofy for me, and they looked weird. but the newer models really drew my attention. So orcs, I've got a Space Marine army from when I started Conquest magazine a few years ago. Imperial Fist it's painted as. I've got an Imperial Knight army. I say army, it's about 5 models it's up to at the minute. But actually built and painted, my main army is orcs, and then I've got Space Marines and Death Guard, and I've got a few Necrons built and painted. I know you like to always hear that where possible. But yeah, mainly play orcs, but I dabble in a lot of other stuff as well.
Yeah. This is not actually part of the questions, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So why do you find you dabble? Is it the lore, or like the stories and stuff that get you interested, or is it the miniatures themselves?
It can definitely be stories, because I found when I started reading the Horus Heresy books that every book I read, I wanted to start that Legion. So definitely the stories help, but I think it's possibly because I've got a short attention span. So when I first got into the hobby and started with Eldar, I liked the fact that they were all in the codex. They were all painted different, so each aspect had its own paint scheme. Dire Avengers mostly blue with a bit of white, and the Striking Scorpions were green. Swooping Hawks a different blue with a bit of white, maybe a bit of yellow here and there. I think mainly because I've got a short attention span is probably the reason that I dabble. But also, I think I've changed in the past few years. I was sort of drawn by the hype of a lot of new things as well. Right, and I like things that just like appeal to me right off the bat. So it's hard to resist sometimes. But I found in the past few years, I don't know if it's the aesthetic or something's changed in the newer miniatures. I mean, to a certain extent, it probably is a little bit of that as well. But I've slowed down on that desire to purchase everything that comes out.
Do you think maybe it's like the speed of the releases these days as well? Because it's literally like every week there's a massive release, isn't there? Whereas it was less frequent before.
Yeah, it's Games Workshop release schedule now. To use a sport analogy, and I know a lot of people into Warhammer aren't necessarily into sport, but theoretically they should understand this. So Games Workshop release schedule now is like a basketball game. So one team in basketball goes and scores, the other team gets the ball, goes and scores, or tries to score at least. And it's a really end-to-end game, and the scoring comes thick and fast. For me, that doesn't excite me, because there's no major highs, major lows. In something like football or rugby or a sport where there's less scoring, I find that more exciting because the tension builds. So Games Workshop release schedule used to be a bit more like a rugby or a football game, where the tension was building. They'd tease something, and then down the line you'd see it released. But now it is very much like, here's a bunch of new orcs, beast snaggers, and then within a couple of months you're getting, or within the next week, you've not even, if you're into multiple game systems, for example, you're not even getting a chance to enjoy your beast snaggers before the new Stormcast Eternals round, and so on and so forth. So it's hard to keep up with. So I think that's definitely part of the reason, actually.
Yeah. So how often do you actually get to like play and hobby?
In terms of playing, I've played 2 games of 10th edition, and they were combat patrol games. I enjoyed them. There wasn't anything wrong with them, but for some reason, in the past 2 years or so, well, since the launch of 10th edition, basically, my desire to play has really dropped off, and I'm not quite sure why. I've been occasionally just sit and wonder why it's happened, but I'm not quite sure why. I can't put my finger on it. But that led to a decline in my hobby as well. But more recently, I have found the urge to pick up a couple of miniature kits and do a little kit bash, build a miniature, and then myself and a group of friends were going to start an Inquisimundo campaign. So using a mixture of the Inquisitor rules and Necromunda rules, like the old Inquisitor game from years ago. I never actually played that game back in the day, but my friend did. So he was going to set up a campaign for us where we all have a small warband, kit bash miniatures, and be able to really tell a narrative story as effectively it's like D&D or any other role-playing game, where there's a bit more dedication to the characters within it. But yeah, in terms of hobby at the minute, I'm doing it relatively frequently, once or twice a week, because of Combat Patrol magazine, which is excuse me.
That's right.
Combat Patrol magazine, which has recently launched in about 2 months ago now. So that's something that helps me do the hobby, and it helps. It makes it easy for me to make videos as well, because I review the magazine, I build the miniatures in it, I paint the miniatures in it, and I play a game.
Obviously, I've seen your. I mean, we're going to talk more about your channel in a minute, but yeah, I've seen obviously your channel, like your videos and stuff, like made a little resurgence recently, obviously with the new magazine coming out, which is nice to see you back up and running on a regular basis.
Yes, it's really good to be back, because it was something that I wouldn't say I missed it, because I was getting on with life just fine, but it is something that I enjoy doing, so it's good to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any really cool wargaming stories? Give us a really cool story that you've had over the years.
Because I don't play that often, I don't have many really cool wargaming stories.
So you only need one. You only need one.
When I say I don't have many, I mean I don't have any. But my approach to the game is very much like, is everybody having a good time, and is everybody enjoying it? And if I can see somebody really wants to do something, but the rules don't quite allow it, I'll sort of encourage them to do it anyway. I think back to a time at Warhammer World when I was playing Keris from Let's Make It Orky, and we both are of a similar sort of level of gaming. Like, we don't play that frequently, and it was Orcs versus her Death Guard, my Orcs versus her Death Guard, and I had a unit of Gretchen or something, I can't remember what the unit was, on the top of a building, and she's got this little Death Guard, I can't remember what it's called, a Plague Burst Crawler or something like that. The small vehicle for Death Guard that's got tracks on it. Yeah. And there's no way it can go up the side of a building, but she wanted to charge a unit of Grots on top of the building. So I said, just do it. Yeah, go on. Just do it. And the game wasn't going my way anyway. And I thought, I could see she was really invested in charging this unit. She was getting excited. So I just let her do it. And just get to combat and then kill that unit. It's another thing off the table then, isn't it? It's just something fun that happens.
So, do you have any plans? I'm laughing at this because of what we've just discussed, but any plans for a new army?
Well, yes. I've got 9 new armies incoming. I say 9 new armies. Some of them will be additions to my current armies, thankfully, Orcs and Space Marines. Yeah. But I've just started a Tyranid army technically, because we're 6 issues into Combat Patrol now, and I've got a Winged Hive Tyrant and so on and so forth. So all the armies that come through Combat Patrol, I'll be getting. The new ones to me will be, technically I've got some Genestealer Cult, but they're from a board game, so it's not quite an army. So the new ones will be Genestealer Cult, Imperial Guard, the World Eaters, and 1 or 2 others, but I can't remember which ones are coming in it now.
I see you got quite a few like board games there as well, haven't you? You got Zombicide there. Do you get?
Yeah, I've got a couple of versions of Zombicide. I've got any other interesting games there? There's not really any other interesting games there. There's a lot of there's Kill Team there. Yeah, it's one of the old versions of Kill Team. I've not played the new version yet, or the version that's just been replaced actually. But yeah, when they changed, I preferred it when Kill Team was more like 40k, because there was less rules to remember that were different. So when Kill Team was like a small version of 40k, it was a lot easier. But when they started changing the rules a lot more, it's just one extra hurdle to jump over. Even though people say it's a very good game, the people that play it, I'm sort of like intrigued to play it, and maybe it's something I can put a more narrative team together and that kind of thing. Although the way it's going, it seems like possibly not, because it seems like in the new edition you're getting set warbands now, rather than being able to tweak things as much. So
yeah, it looks like it, doesn't it? So a bit more like Combat Patrol type of thing, but for Kill Team. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which I suppose sort of has its advantages. Maybe like, say, from my point of view, it might be easier for me to play it because like those are your fixed models, right?
Yeah.
I've got those models, and here we go. Rather than having to work out your own team and how all the rules work for that. Yeah,
that's one advantage. I've played a few games like that, like the Warhammer Underworlds game, where you can just get set war bands. They do certain things. You get cards, you build a deck, and then you play the game. It's nice and simple. You don't have to think about list building or anything.
No, yeah. Excellent. Okay, well, it's great to hear about your hobby, but we're going to move on to your channel now. So, yeah, Big Mac Dan Skull, the channel name. I think that actually had a few channel name changes, haven't you, over the years?
I think it was originally just my name, Daniel
right.
Gibbons or something.
And then changed it. Okay.
Yeah, and then I changed it to Big Mac Dan Skull.
How long have you been on YouTube for then?
Almost as long as I've been back into the hobby, I think. So it's got to be about 11, 12 years now, something like that.
Long time, yeah.
Yeah, when I first started the channel, I think my first video was to enter one of your terrain square challenges. I can't remember which one. Did you do a corner one? It might have been the corner.
I did do a corner one, yeah.
Or it might have been, you did a table one as well, didn't you? It could have been that one.
I did obviously quite a few over the years. Yeah, started off like a square one, 12 by 12. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I did like a small one, had to be 6 by 6.
Yeah.
Then a corner. I did a bridge.
I definitely answered the bridge one, yeah.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that one.
I just ran out of ideas. I did a circle one as well.
I did a
circle competition.
Yeah, I've got for the Train Square Circle one, I've got some really simply made Eldar terrain just on like a cake tray. So really easy to make circular terrain, I think. Just go to your supermarket, buy a cake tray.
Yeah, it might be a bit different to do something like that these days because like 40k is just let's do a ruined building. We could do a ruined building competition.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did inspire you then to actually start your YouTube channel?
You, to put it simply,
really?
it was you and the desire to interact with people as well, because I'm not a super confident person in new situations and stuff like that. So I find it easier to say record something and put it on the internet. Is that I'm just talking to myself when I'm talking to my camera after all.
Yeah.
So then you get the interaction through comments and stuff like that, or commenting on other people's videos. You see their stuff, they see your stuff. You get that bit of hobby interaction, because when I got back into the hobby, I only had one opponent, and I wouldn't go to game stores or clubs or anything to seek out new opponents, because I'm quite a shy person. I don't like new situations, so it's one of those things that I found I found community online rather than in person. So I think that's definitely one of the main drivers in starting my channel.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, obviously, this is another reason why I am doing these podcasts as well, is to get back into that community interaction. Yeah. Which I feel I lost it for the last few years, because obviously where I've been very much like concentrated on just like doing the Necron content, it limits you a bit more, So it feels good to like get back to my roots as such.
Yeah, fantastic.
So how is your channel doing at the moment? Obviously, you've been uploading a few more videos recently. Has that been helping the numbers?
Yeah, definitely. It's I mean, you're definitely going to get more views on if you're making content than if you're not. Unless you've had like some massively viral video years ago that every so often comes back round and becomes relevant again. But yeah, if you're making videos, and when I made the first Combat Patrol video, I reviewed the magazine. I built 2 of the miniatures in it, and I made videos for each of them. And what else did I do? I played the first mission from the first magazine, so I got 4 videos out of that. In theory, I could be putting out 3 videos a week quite comfortably now, as long as I have the time to do it. That's the hard part, because I work a full-time job where I work up to 60 hours a week. It's difficult to find time and maintain a relationship and all those other things. But if you can sort of juggle it all, then in theory I could get 3 videos a week out of it. And getting back into it, I've really enjoyed it, because I think a lot of people like us, we forget sometimes that YouTube is a hobby as much as Warhammer is a hobby. So we enjoy the editing side, the being creative, coming up with ideas for videos, ideas for thumbnails, all that sort of stuff. Ideas for topics to talk about and questions to ask on podcasts and stuff. So it's just
it's a hobby in itself, isn't it? Basically,
exactly.
Yeah. And I've always said it inspires my hobby, my 40k hobby, because obviously I want to do my 40k stuff to give me more content for the channel.
Exactly.
But then also it can take time away from my hobby as well, you know. So I get less painting time, etc.
Yeah.
Plus, I've recently started going to the gym. The last 3 months I've been going to the gym, and that's also taken away my hobby time as well. It's like on a Sunday morning I used to get up and go do 2 hours of painting before work, and now I do 2 hours of gym before work. So but you have to juggle life, don't you, basically, around everything. So
exactly.
Yeah. So what would you say you enjoy the most about your hobby, about the channel? Sorry.
The interaction with people, I think. Receiving nice comments and stuff. I used to do a series called Warhammer 40k, where I'd talk about a particular topic in relation to wargaming. And one thing I found with that is it got more negative comments because people would have conflicting opinions, and they'd offer them readily. And they'd tell me when I was talking rubbish and all that kind of stuff. So I found that kind of interaction very negative, and that's one of the reasons I stopped doing that kind of content. Although I enjoyed recording the content and sharing my thoughts, it was the negative interactions that came afterwards. Right. So for me, positive interaction is definitely something I thrive on, and it drives me towards making the next video and that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. That moment when you see that really nice comment come up, so it just makes you think, oh yeah, that's, you know, just like you say, I want to continue, don't you? Basically.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So do you have any sort of goals for the channel?
I wouldn't say I've got any goals. In the past, I sort of flirted with the idea of one day being a full-time YouTuber, but it's not in my future, that I don't think. I don't have the time to dedicate to it in order to improve my content, and I say improve my content. I'm satisfied with the level of content I'm putting out now, and I get enough out of it now that I don't feel the need to improve it to the point where it does become a job. And also, there's a potential negative side of it being a job, where will I still enjoy my hobby if it's my job? It's not necessarily going to be one of those things that I would be able to maintain. So I'm realistic in my aims with it, and it's just continuing to foster that community and allow people, I think, to find their own way into the hobby and stuff like that, because there might be one video I put out that gets another person into the hobby, and if I can help one other person enjoy the hobby, then I've done a good thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to do it right now whilst we're doing our show, but I need to find it, so we're going to pause.
No worries.
Okay. To be fair, we're going really quick anyway, so I need to do a little shout out to someone, and this is that perfect time to do it. Right, I found it. So yeah, actually, it reminds me that Richard went to a GT recently, and he met one of my subscribers there, Xander. And he was saying that he was cursing me, basically, saying that I got him into Necrons. So he was there with his Necron army, and it was all my fault. So yeah, little shout out to you, Xander.
You've damaged his bank balance a fair bit, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I've had like a lot of people say that they got into Necrons, you know, because of my channel, which is awesome. But also get quite a few people that say they don't play Necrons, they don't even necessarily like Necrons that much, but they still like watching my videos, which is like that's really nice as well, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all those positive comments for sure. That's makes it all worthwhile.
I think that comes naturally from someone like yourself. You are so giving when it comes to getting into the hobby. People just getting into the hobby, and also people getting into the YouTube hobby as well. Because I think I've asked you for advice in the past, and you've been ready to give it there and then kind of thing. And it's really helpful, really encouraging, and it creates a really good community vibe.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, it's good to know. I always try to help people out if I can. Yeah. I mean, why not? There's no reason not to, is there? Really?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, do you have any sort of exciting video ideas coming up?
Exciting video ideas. I've had a video in the pipeline for a long time, and it's something a little bit out of my comfort zone, but also something crazy that I've sort of, I want to get it out there eventually, but I won't say too much about it. But
no, don't give the game away. I mean, we know that you do crazy stuff.
Yeah, well, I like to. I
remember you winning my Necron competition with that Necron video.
Yeah, that was
so funny.
A fun one, yeah. Was it a Necron Overlord communicating with me or something like that?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. A Necron girl chose the winner of that competition. She loved your video. It's so funny.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I have got another video that I started making last spring, I think. So not the most recent spring, last year. I went out, I filmed some stuff on the streets in all these like sort of cool looking urban locations, and it involves. I'll just say it's like a music video basically. So take from that what you will. But I hope to get that video edited and put together properly. I just need to work on some things. At some point, I hope to get that video out. Yeah. But that's potentially a long way down the pipeline. Maybe I'll do it as a Christmas special or something. We'll see.
Something like that, yeah. Funny enough, Steve-O said that he had like video that he'd been working on like for a couple of years,
Yeah.
I've never had that. I've never experienced that. I've had video ideas like in the back burner for a long time. That are just simmering there just for, sometimes videos just come because you get inspired to do it, don't you?
Exactly.
And sometimes you got that idea, it's there, and then like one day it's like, I'm going to make that video. But I've never had like footage recorded and like stored away. It's like I'm either making the video or I don't.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem. I am a bit like I'm either making the video or I don't. I've started the video, and because I've paused it, when am I going to go back to it? So it's like some conversion projects I start. I've got a Gorkanaut / Stomper on the shelf there behind me.
I remember that one. Yeah, I remember it.
I think it was an October thing I started. Probably about 5-6 years ago now, and it's still there in the same condition that I got it up to back then. But I need to finish that as well. So, yeah. The music video. One thing I can say is the potential music video will involve working with resin miniatures and a gargantuan squigoth from Forge World. So it's to do with that. That's something I can say anyway to sort of tease a little bit more of it.
Yeah. What do you think of the whole Forge World situation at the moment?
It's a shame. One thing we've already said I like in the hobby is variety. And the miniatures you can get from Forge World, or could get from Forge World, I really liked so that you get something slightly different aesthetically from Games Workshop stuff. Slightly more high-end. In the vast majority of cases, say what you will about Forge World resin and the bad casts you get sometimes and stuff. Generally speaking, the customer service is quite good. And so if you do get something that you can't work with at all, you'd be able to get a replacement for it or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a real shame that we're seeing army after army lose. I think most of the armies now, it's basically down to some Horus Heresy stuff, isn't it? Other than
not much left,
one or two things, big things like the Gargantuan Squigoth for Orcs. But hopefully we'll see some of those kits again in the future in plastic, because plastic technology is way further ahead now than it was when those kits were released back in the day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like you say, my Forge World experience has always been quite positive. I bought that Necron Seraptic, the big spidery thing.
Really cool.
And I ordered one of each of the guns, and I received 2 of one gun.
Oh, right.
So yeah, I phoned them up, or I think I might have emailed them actually. And yeah, they said no problem. They sent me the 2 of the correct guns, and my bits box now has like 2 of these guns in.
Brilliant.
And they're worth like 45 quid,
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had no trouble at all with them. And I always remember in the old days, obviously I started with Necrons, of course, and Necrons had at the time, apart from the pylon, the Forge World pylon, we had nothing else. I went to Games Day and I bought a pylon there, which was that was an exciting experience. Actually, buying it at Games Day as well was nice, rather than ordering it on the website.
Could imagine.
But all my buddies, they used to always buy Forge World's tank upgrade kits, to make like a normal Rhino super cool, for a particular faction. And I used to be so jealous that they had all these really cool little upgrade kits. So when I got my Eldar army, I'd look at the Forge World website, and of course they had the Wave Serpent upgrade kit. And I went a bit crazy on that. All of my Eldar tanks, I've got 6 of them. They've all got the upgrade kit on.
Yeah.
Even the ones that aren't supposed to. So like my fire prisms, because the upgrade kit was only really for Wave Serpents and I think the Vulcan.
Yeah.
But I adapted it to work with my fire prisms as well.
Right.
But they do
was it an extension to the crew cabin back?
Yeah, it's like an extension on the sides, so the sides are longer.
Right.
And an extension on the top. And then you got vectored engines to put in the back. And you got little star engines as well. And I magnetised my star engines and stuff,
Brilliant.
So, yeah, I think it is a shame, but I can also sort of understand maybe why they're doing it. Obviously, financially, it just probably doesn't make sense now.
Yeah.
And the cost of those models, which they could probably quite easily do, probably better in plastic even these days.
Absolutely, yeah.
Then why not? Okay, so we've got through all of those questions. So we're going to move on to the extra additional ones, which are mainly about 10th edition. Which I know you obviously, you haven't really played 10th edition, have you? So I'm sure you've been. I suppose that's the first question. Have you been keeping up with the rules and everything that's been happening with 10th edition?
No. No. Yeah, I occasionally have a chat with people about what's going on, but I don't even keep up to date with errata and stuff like that, really. Yeah, I don't really, so I can't say too much about it.
No, okay, fair enough. When you came to my tournament, we were obviously playing 9th edition. I think it just come out, hadn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So had you? How much 9th edition did you play?
I played more 9th edition than I did 10th. I played about 4 or 5 games in the run up to the tournament. Other than that, I probably played about 10, 15 games of 9th edition altogether. So I'm not that far behind when you consider I played 2 games of 10th edition. I could easily catch up to about 10, 15 games, but it's the edition I played most of, 9th edition, because every edition before that, I just play every few months or something like that. But when after finding the Let's Make It Orky community, when Keris started streaming, I found other people through that, relatively local to me. So they were sort of regular games that I could get in with a couple of people.
Yeah.
9th edition is the edition I played most of, but I don't take gaming very seriously in terms of attending tournaments and stuff like that. Like I said earlier, if a rule doesn't work for what you want to do, I'm happy to just ignore that rule.
Right. Yeah.
I think I was watching your previous episode and you were speaking about something to do with pivoting. And
yes, the new pivot.
Yeah, for me, I just ignore that altogether because it saps the fun out of the game. It takes too much energy to try and work out exactly how something like that works. And I'm not playing in a tournament, so for me, just like turn your model however you want. It's not going to get it that much closer.
No,
Although it could make the difference in a charge or in a certain weapons range or something like that. It'll just make the game more fun, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I think this is it. It's no doubt that 10th edition is like hyper focused to the competitive side, which has a major positive to the game, because the game there's no doubt about it, the game is the most like even, what's the word, balanced, the most balanced it's ever been, and that is really good, and most of 10th edition, apart from maybe one or two games where there's been a slaughtering either way, most of the time you've both got half a chance, or at least when you finish playing the game, you might have lost, but you've got 60 points, your opponent's got like 75 points. You think, oh, it's quite close, a few more points here and then, you go away feeling like you had a good game. So there's definitely a lot of positives for 10th edition, but also there's a lot of negatives as well, and the constant rule changes is probably something which maybe like keeps people like yourself that don't play that often away, probably even more, because it's like every time you think, well, actually I might have a game this week, with my buddy, and it's like, right, how many points is this now? Let's get the new points, let's get the new data cards and so it's like good and bad things, I suppose, about 10th edition, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it feels like, I can't remember if there's actually been instances of this, but it feels like before the codex even in somebody's hand, so they pre-order for 2 weeks, before it's in the hand, they've updated some of the rules in it. And that really, for me, sort of is very annoying, because it really discourages me from playing. I feel like I may as well just stick with... People say this quite a lot, like, I may as well stick with the previous edition, but the problem with that is finding an opponent that's willing to do that as well.
Well, this is it. It's 100% down to your gaming group, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I have quite a small gaming group. Apart from Richard, who lives quite close to me, all the other people that I play are basically like YouTubers, that people I found on YouTube. I mean, I'm quite lucky that Steve-O doesn't live too far away.
Yeah.
And some of the other guys are willing to travel, because I don't travel that well, to be fair. So I feel quite lucky, but without all of those people, I probably wouldn't have anyone to play,
Yeah.
And it's your gaming group is huge, I think, impact on your gaming. However, some people obviously just don't like gaming so much. They prefer the painting and the converting and the just the hobby side of it.
Yeah.
So, would you say you're in that category, or are you just not playing because you don't have the opportunity to play?
No, I think I'm definitely in the category where I prefer the hobby side of it. I like, as much as I've been talking about community earlier, I like alone time as well. I like just focusing on something that I can do myself, and sometimes I'll quite often, not so much these days, but in the past, I'll build and paint miniatures, and I won't film any of it and use it for YouTube content or anything like that, because if I don't want to do the YouTube hobby, I still want to do the Warhammer hobby. So it's finding the right balance, I think, is important. And I'm definitely I think the thing I like about both the YouTube and Warhammer hobby is the creativity that you can show off in both hobbies. So with YouTube, it comes in the form of certain edits and stuff you might do, certain effects you might use when you're editing and all that kind of stuff. But with Warhammer, it comes in taking 5 different kits and sticking them all on a base, and all of a sudden you've got a completely unique, completely unique miniature, unless somebody copies your exact recipe for that miniature. So you create characters in your own mind, and then you bring them to realization with a miniature.
I think you're 100% right there, because like I said, I didn't get to the hobby till I was 30.
Yeah.
But the thing that got me, I really did like the gaming side. I enjoyed the gaming. Me and my buddies, we used to game every week. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But I think the thing which really hooked me was the creative side of things, because You know, at school, I was quite creative. You know, I did like pottery at school and woodwork, you know, that sort of stuff. I'm a bit of I'm a hands-on type of guy.
Yeah.
And I lost that. You know, I left school, went to work, and I didn't do like drawing and painting. And the closest I got was I had to paint my house. You know, that was like the closest I got to it.
Yeah.
And then when I found the hobby and like, oh wow, you know, it's like especially the 3rd edition Necron Codex, right at the back, like how to build all the terrain and stuff was in the back of that book. And I always remember we had a game with no terrain on there. We had like jam jars and stuff, you know, like you do when you first start. Yeah. And the next week I'd made this Necron Abyss, you know, all painted up, like the crystals on it and stuff. And my buddies like couldn't believe I'd made that in a week. But like, yeah, my creative juices got flowing because of the hobby. So whilst I do really like gaming, I do also really enjoy the hobby. And you're absolutely right. Just like doing a few hours of hobby by yourself, you just zone out. And it's like, even though you're like highly concentrated on what you're doing, you're like really relaxed. So your mind just like forgets everything around you, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I found certain newer things to me, like when a few years ago when we were all locked in our houses, newer things like Discord and hanging out on Discord, or you know, it might have been Facebook rooms for some people, or Zoom or Skype. You know, any number of ways you can hang out with people remotely, integrating that into your hobby time as well. So although I like solo hobby, hanging out with people, not necessarily in the same room, because I find that can be a little bit distracting, but online, you've got them in your ears at least. You don't have to look at the screen if you don't want to. It can really, really help pass the time when you're doing your hobby. And you can sort of, it can be bad sometimes because you can lose track of time and all of a sudden it's midnight and you're up at 3 a.m. So, it's that's something that I find really, really encouraging, I suppose, with a hobby as well.
Yeah. Have you done? Can't remember. Have you done live streams over the years?
Yeah, I used to do Twitch. I've not done any recently, and I used to do a Sunday show on YouTube as well. But yeah, I've not done any live streams for a while now. I may well start doing them again in the future. But yeah, that was I have sort of like a mixed thing with live streams, because you have to get for myself, I have to get a decent audience that's interacting in the chat and stuff like that, because it makes me more lively. If the chat's quiet, I find it's like, for me, it's like pulling teeth. So it's just it becomes painful when I realise I've been silent for ages. Although some people like watching that kind of stuff where there's just someone painting, they can see the miniature being painted on screen, there's some lo-fi music playing or whatever. Some people like that kind of stuff to just have on in the background when they're doing their own hobby. But for me, I found it difficult towards the end of when I was doing live streams. My numbers were going down, and so the chat wasn't that active, and that's one of the reasons I stopped it, really.
Yeah, what I did is I printed out like 100 questions.
Nice.
100 questions. I had it just pinned on my board, and then you know, if it really died down, then I just pick a question and I just like ask myself the question and answer it, and it's like help keep it going a bit. But
that's a good idea.
Yeah. But also I noticed that sometimes you think you're being quiet for a long time, but actually when you watch it back, it's hardly any time at all.
Yeah.
Have you noticed? It feels like you haven't said anything for about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
When you look back, it's like 5 seconds or something. It's like, so I'm hoping to get back to doing some live streams at some point. What I found hard to do is it's almost like the commitment, because you have to like program it in, like in 3 days' time I'm going to go live at this time.
Yeah.
And then you're like really tied in, aren't you? And if something happens, especially if you have a family, you know, things happen, don't they? And it's like, oh, now I've got to commit to doing that. So I do prefer the recorded videos.
Yeah.
But live streaming is fun. Even though it's scary, it is a lot of fun.
Definitely. The first time you press go live, it's a bit daunting. But you get used to it, I think, and you find your footing relatively quickly, I'd say. But well, most people do. Maybe not everybody does, but I feel like most people do, and your audience finds you. And if you're streaming on YouTube and you've already got an established YouTube channel, you know, some of your viewers will come along. It won't be at the right time for other viewers, so you'll get people coming and going throughout the stream as well. There's always something new to talk about, and different people offering different opinions on stuff that you are talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm going to skip some of these questions because obviously they're going to be fairly irrelevant, I suppose. This is a good one then. So is there like a YouTube star or personality that you would like to play?
I've not played you yet. So, yeah, there's a few. I want to play Steve-O. I've got a friend who's soon to be moving down to not far from you two, so there may be a reason for me to be in the area in the not too distant future at some point next year or something. And I may well reattend Dominion War in the future as well. So it's there's hopefully going to be opportunity there for us to play each other. Yeah, I'd like to play Steve-O. Oh, here's a thing. So the War Bosses had a meet-up where they all played each other.
Yes, I know.
Turns out they stayed in a house that was at the end of my mum and dad's road, 10 miles.
You're joking.
No, it's an Airbnb that's at the end of my mum and dad's road. So yeah, I didn't get an invite, but yeah, no, that's fine. No, it's their thing, obviously. So I'm only poking fun, but yeah, they were playing game after game after game. I couldn't imagine playing as many games as they were doing, to be honest. They each played 5 games, I suppose, didn't they? Because there's 6 of them. But yeah, it's that'd be a drain on me, that. But I suppose they didn't play them all in a day, I don't think. So that.
No, I think they hired it out like a little holiday, basically, a Wargaming holiday.
Yeah.
I said to Steve, "How did you get away with that with your wife?" And he goes, she knows I'm doing nothing but playing with toy soldiers, so it's all right."
That's it, yeah.
Mind you, I always think that they should have a Necron player there just to mix things up.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. One day I'm gonna
just take your entire collection and face off against
gate crash. Yeah. So I don't know if you've actually tried list building much in 10th edition. Obviously, we no longer have things like elites and fast attack and stuff, and it's all done with just like your fixed data cards. And obviously, we no longer have well, basically, we've got detachments now, haven't we? Rather than trying to think what the old word was called, but
what were they called? Formations.
Formations. Well, yeah. Anyway, what are they? Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. What do you think of the new list building system? Do you like it?
It allows you a lot of freedom, I think. I don't hate it, but I wouldn't mind a bit more structure myself. I'm of two minds about it, really. I like that the app works now, and it's everybody can use the same app now in theory.
Yeah.
There are still some people that hold out and say, "Oh, it's a rubbish app," and they use the first version of it, and it's been updated many times since then. But anyway, I think it's probably quite easy for newcomers now to start building lists because there's what is there? Something like a core unit and an HQ or something like that, and then after that is everything else, isn't it? So
yeah, you've got to have one warlord. Mm-hmm. So basically, you've got to take one character to be your warlord, and then it's pretty much anything else. You can take what you want. Yeah. So yeah.
So it's, to be fair, it allows you a lot of flexibility. There are limits to it, though, aren't there? Because there's a rule of 3 that you have to abide by for most units.
Yeah. So if it's an epic hero character, you can only have one of them, just like it used to be. But yeah, it's, unless it's battle line troops, battle line is 6 slots of data, the same data card, and then anything else is 3 effectively.
Right.
So it's got those limitations.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to play like what used to be, say, your heavy supports.
Mm-hmm.
If you in the old days you could only have 3 of them. Now, if you want to take like 9 of them, you can. So it definitely makes for more thematic type lists, I think. personally, I really like it. I think the downside of it, and I've recorded a video yesterday about this, which will be on the channel before this one goes up. So I'll link this video in the description below.
I've already seen
it. The downside of this is, I think, with the way that the missions are, the Pariah Nexus missions with all the cards and secondaries and stuff. Because you still, whilst you've got this huge opportunity to build like really thematic, fun, fluffy lists, you could pretty much take like what you want almost with that apart from the limitation of like 3 units. However, you have to list build for the mission cards if you're playing them, because if you don't, it's really hard to score some of those missions. And that then takes you out of that like fluffy fun list building side, because you're thinking, right, I need to have like 2 small units, to do this.
Or you need to have a certain amount of fast units in order to be able to get from objective to objective and stuff.
And then you need, I need a couple of deep strike units, to get like behind enemy lines and stuff. And then all of a sudden you built this list, and it's not actually what you want at all. It's like, I've only got them because of the mission. I don't really want them. I want to have 120 like warriors on the table, whatever. So I think it's that's the disadvantage, whilst I really like it. But yeah, this video, which I'm linking you up to, which Dan hasn't seen yet, explains more about my solution for this problem, because I've come up with a solution for it. So yeah, go and check it out if you haven't already. Okay, so let's see if we've got any other testing questions. Here we go. So how long would you say an edition should last? Obviously, currently we're on about 3 years, 3-year cycle. What do you think?
I was watching you chat with Steve-O, I think he was spot on. I think it was Steve-O that said this. It may not have been. It may have been Dan from Warhammer. It needs to be 5 years for me. Because
that was Dan. Was
that Dan? Yeah. So it needs to be 5 years for the exact reasons that he said. Everybody will have the codex after 3 years, and then they get 2 years to play with a set army, or not a set army, but they get 2 years to play with set rules.
Especially the people that get the codex last.
And in theory, that's when the game will be its most balanced. At the start of the edition, you get certain armies getting a codex, and then they get their updates and all that sort of stuff, and then their army's sort of settled. I think it can be it can be a positive or a negative to get your codex first. It's normally Space Marines. Not always. I think, was it Tyranids Edition? I can't remember. But either way, it's it can be a positive or a negative, because if you get your updates, if you get your codex and your updates too soon, then you get a bit of codex creep after that. So normally you want your book to come out after about 1.5 years or something, I'd say, where they've sort of settled on power of the edition. Occasionally you'll get anomalies where a really powerful or a really weak book comes out after 1 year or 2 years or something. But I think for me, if everything's level after about 3 years, and that's when they should allow you to just run with it for a bit. Go to tournaments for a few years if you want to go to tournaments. Play with your friends. Have fewer arguments because everything's balanced. Everybody understands the rules and everything. Oh no, they've got to update it and keep that money coming in with the codex sales and stuff. So I understand why they do it, but it's very frustrating that they do it at the speed they do it.
Yeah, and it's like, especially when they advertise, it's like, the ultimate edition, like, this is the edition you all dreamed of. It's like, well, if it's that good, why has that only lasted for 3 years?
Yeah. The only way I can think to avoid having to have an edition last 5 years is if they released all the books on day one, like they did for the past few editions with the indexes. And whilst they aren't as flavourful, it felt like everybody was sort of level when did they first do that with 8th edition? They released the indexes.
Yeah, they had the index like codices, didn't they? So you had like Xenos 1, etc.
Imperium, and Chaos. Yeah, it was. So it wasn't. The game wasn't its most flavorful then, but everybody sort of roughly had a level playing field. There was probably some more powerful things. than others. But yeah, it was. I feel like if everybody got the codex on day of release of a game, they'd have to do all the work behind the scenes in the meantime. But then if they do it for one edition, they can do it for the next edition. They can do it for the other edition, because they're not trying to do this constant release cycle of books. And I know that means all the money would come in at the start of the edition then. But so that's probably the reason they don't do it, because there's not money coming in every 2 weeks or every month from Space Marines being released one week, Tyranids the next week, Necrons the following week.
It's a constant flow of money, isn't it? So, yeah. So obviously, my Necron Codex lasted me 10 years. Cycled through 3 editions. That Codex.
Yeah.
You don't really hear of that these days, do you?
Never, no, not at all.
Yeah.
I think another one like that was Sisters of Battle, wasn't it? I think they got a White Dwarf Codex or something.
Something like that, wasn't it?
But yeah, that lasted a good number of editions, I think.
Yeah. What was your favourite codex?
In terms of what the
just anything like what the codex doesn't necessarily mean the rules, but just like something which is like close to your heart, your favourite one.
Close to my heart, I'd say the 2nd edition Eldar Codex, because it was one of those things that, like, along with the Striking Scorpions, I saw the cover of that Codex, and it's got, I think, a Die Revenger Exarch on the front of it, and it just really bright, really colourful, classic 90s Codex.
Was all the Eldar in there? Because at one point you had to buy like the Sun Han Codex to go with the Eldar, didn't you?
Yeah,
they split them up, didn't they?
They were in there technically. I think I've got it behind me actually somewhere. I can reach it. But yeah, they were in there, and even like Harlequins and stuff were in there. But there we go. So it's that one I'm talking about.
Right.
Yeah, so even Harlequins and stuff are in there, and it's got different Craft World colour schemes and everything. It's got Bealtan, Alatok.
Okay, I think it was after that one then that they split it. Split it up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I remember, I know I've seen, and I own one of the Codex supplements that came in like 6th edition or something for Ianden. But yeah, I've not any experience with completely separate Craft World books.
No, fair enough. Well, it's been awesome talking to you, Dan, and we've come up to our hour show. So yeah, really appreciate you coming on. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been really good. I've really enjoyed talking to you again.
Excellent. Well, of course, as I said earlier, there is a link to Dan's channel in the description below. Make sure you head on over and give him a sub. I'm sure he would appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And yeah, if you want to see some of our other shows, then they are linked in the description below. So yeah, go and check those out as well. And I'll see you in the next one. Cool.
Lovely.
Oh, that was good, though, wasn't it? We zipped through those first questions.
I know.
What are we going to talk about?
I was flying through what I was talking about so much, my throat set on fire and I couldn't stop coughing.